Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another podcast. Today's topic is about why breaking free from a pattern is difficult. And I will read you an excerpt from the book Screwtape Letters that was written by C.S. Lewis. It says that I note with great displeasure that the enemy has, so when he says the enemy, is referring to God's people, because these are demons talking amongst each other. For the time being, put a forcible end to your direct attacks on the patient's chastity. Chastity is defined as it is about the extramarital practices. For instance, if you are fornicating, having marital intercourse before marrying someone, that is also called not chastity. You're actually also not practicing chastity, because you also have infidelity. So it says that you ought to have known that he always does in the end. And you ought to have stopped before you reach the stage. For as things are, your man has now discovered the dangerous truth that these attacks don't last forever. Consequently, you cannot use again what is, after all, our best weapon, the belief of ignorant humans that there is hope of getting rid of us except by yielding. I suppose you tried persuading him that chastity is unhealthy. And I'll stop right here. So, because we know that breaking patterns and not practicing sexual immorality and not participating with premarital sex before getting married is difficult, because it is all over the news, it's all over the media, it's all over the movies that we watch. They are also promoting sexual immorality in our books, and therefore, depending on what you listen and what you read, this can influence in how we function in our lives. And it's becoming so normalized today, and that's why it's very common to practice infidelity and to promote sexual immorality. And because breaking patterns, that is abusive behavior, bad habits, these are toxic behavior and other things that are not contributing to your growth, is very hard. It is because, as I said, we do not wrestle against blood and flesh. And all it starts with our mindset. As I always like to say, the wilderness allegory or metaphor that the Bible used when Moses was led by God to lead his people out of the slavery from the Egyptians for 400 years, it's because God wants them to have a different kind of mindset. The wilderness is where you call the ground. It is the ground where God is going to teach you. He's going to try to reveal to you the bad habits, toxic things that you've been believing. This is why God had to take them into the wilderness, to remove any belief system that they have been believing. Now, I'm not trying to question God and say, well, you should have known better, God, that these people have been in bondage for 400 years. What made you think that they're going to completely change their mindset in 2 weeks? Because let's face it, breaking bad habits, breaking patterns is very difficult. People have patterns. They'll just get a good at 1 week for like maybe having a diet. We all know this. We stick to our diet for a week or 2 months, and then we're going to fall off the wagon, and then we're going to go back to our old ways. The same thing with breaking free from any addictions, whether it's gambling addiction, alcoholism, drugs, or whatever kind of crutches you're using to numb your pain. These are temporary fixes that we have been blinded by the devil, thinking to ourselves that this actually is going to set us free. But actually, listen to what this 2 Corinthians 10:3-5 says. For though we walk in the flesh, we are not waging war according to the flesh. For the weapons of our warfare are not of the flesh, but have divine power to destroy strongholds. We destroy arguments and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God, and take every thought captive to obey Christ. So even though we're walking physically, if you're alive, you are walking with your physical body. But it says that our warfare is not man between man. It is not flesh against flesh. It is a spiritual battle, which I always like to emphasize on my channel. It is the people that are used by Satan. These are demonic people that their God is their money, their belly is their God. They like to talk smooth you, they gaslight toxic people who keep on doing the same old saga drama. You will know when people are not awakened in your life. And here are the key points that you have to watch out for. 1, they don't take accountability. 2, they keep making excuses for their bad behavior and the choices that they're making. 3, they love to be in their comfort zone. And 4, they will downplay, and they're going to use that trick to trigger and provoke you. This is why majority of people in the wilderness never made it to the promised land. So a promised land is where the breakthrough happens. A promised land is where you have completely no longer imprisoned by the shackles of the lie of the devil himself. If you used to be so angry before, maybe you're not as angry as you used to or getting triggered as much as you used to. You will know that you have been progressing in your growth, that you have changed the pattern of your bad behavior, because you can see the difference. The person probably 10 years ago was very easily triggered, impatient, and then suddenly, because you have done the work, you are willing to take accountability. You're not making excuses of your bad behavior. You actually are willing to admit that you are at fault, that you apologize sincerely, that you're going to say, okay, I messed up and then I'm going to do better again tomorrow. You will know that you're actually working progress because you have done the work, because you're not in denial. You're not numbing your pain. You're not running from the truth, and you're not hiding from it. Unbeknownst to us, this is why many people are stuck to their old pattern, and breaking free from a pattern is difficult because it is not because we can do it ourselves. It is not based on self-will. It's not based on self-discipline. Well, there is such people that are so good in discipline, and they actually are following discipline when it comes to exercising. What I'm talking about, breaking free from difficult situation or difficult pattern, is about your mindset. It's how you see things. And I told you, I have encountered people in my life that are old in the body, they're pruning, decaying, and almost dead, but their mindset is still in the pubescence. They still play the victim. They still make excuses for their bad behavior instead of guiding you, because they're an adult in the room. As it turns out, they're like toddlers that you have to take care of them too. So Ephesians 6:13-18, it says, therefore take up the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand firm, stand therefore having fastened on the belt of truth. A difficult people hates the truth. This is why also another way that people cannot break free from the pattern, because they refuse to speak the truth in love. They hide from their lies. They are actually lying through their teeth all the time, and that's why they can never have breakthrough. The only way for you to have breakthrough and to break the patterns and the cycles of the imprisonment of the shackles of your mindset is to set yourself free from the lies. This is why we're told to put on the breastplate of righteousness and your shoes for your feet, having put on the breastplate of peace. In all circumstances, take up the shield of faith with you can extinguish all the flaming darts of the devil, and take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. So because the unbeliever is equivalent to people that are not saved, it doesn't mean that you're an unbeliever that doesn't believe in God, that you're wicked. We know that the wicked people is equivalent in the Bible as foolish people. So I'm not saying that just because you don't believe in Jesus Christ that you're not a Christian, that you're wicked through and through, because we all know that there are people out there that are also good, even though they're not Christians. However, there are Christians today and who claim that they love God, but they're actually demonic inside. This is what you call hypocrites, brood of vipers that Jesus had to deal with in his old days. They will follow the 10 Commandments to the T. They're religious people. They go to church and they can memorize verses, but their heart is wicked and they're actually lie through their teeth. And this is why it's important that if you want to break free from the shackles of hell and break free from the cycle and the pattern, we got to start with the truth. How willing are you to face your demons? Are you willing to face your childhood trauma without running away from it? Are you willing to admit the fact that you actually need help from God? You need to humble yourself and stop being prideful, thinking to yourself that I don't need God. I can manage this myself and I will be fine. We all know that people cannot handle situation on their own because we are humans. We are finite human being. We cannot fix ourselves because the problem is our soul. It is our heart. The problem is not really about the physical, but it's what's going on between your intellect and your emotional well-being, and that's what composes your soul. And that's why Jesus said, what good is a man who has everything in the world? You might have money, fame, and the prestige in life, but you don't have a soul. You are soulless. You don't feel any emotion. You lack of empathy. You don't have understanding for people's pain. You keep on playing this mind game that you're the victim, even though people know that you're actually the villain. You like to twist people's words. You like to lie. And you actually like to manipulate and control. And that is why God cannot possibly help those people who are wicked. There is no peace for the wicked. That's why the Bible is clear in Psalm 1, something 1:1 that says, blessed are those who do not dwell amongst the wicked, who do not eat among the scoffers. He is a righteous man planted and he is rooted. And it's important that who we hang out with and the people that we surround ourselves with truly matters. Because if you truly want to be free from the shackles of this pattern of life, you want to hang out with the people who have done the work, who are not going to shy away from taking accountability, who doesn't play the victim, because it is such it is not admirable character. You don't want to hang out with a pigeon who cannot fly very high. Unlike the eagle, an eagle can fly higher than a pigeon. If you will be a little eagle, for instance, maybe somehow you're a little eagle and you decided to hang out with a pigeon and you don't know any better, and you grow up being an eagle, an eaglet, and then you decided to hang out with the pigeons, and then you decided to fly like the pigeons, and they only fly up to the roof and they actually just gather together, eat the same thing, and then that's it. But because somebody told you one day and says, what are you doing? You're not a pigeon. You're actually an eagle. You can fly higher than this, and you can soar above the sky, especially during the storm. And of course, mind will be confused because all your life you thought that you're actually a pigeon. But because you never question your surroundings, you never question the status quo, you never bothered to actually get out of your comfort zone. So all this time you thought you're a pigeon, when actually you cannot be an eagle when you do not get out of the comfort zone, when you know that this comfort zone of yours are toxic, they're not really challenging you, the people around you are negative, critical, pessimistic. This is why many people get stuck in the same old pattern, because they are afraid of being alone. And we can see that many people who had breakthrough in their life in history, they were not afraid of being alone. Every great artist, every greatest musician, every philosophers, they were actually obsessed being by themselves, luck on their own, trying to understand what they were here to do. And they were not really caring about this group mindset and this people that have to please them, because God forbid, if I'm alone, what people are going to say. Remember what Romans 12:2 says, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is good and acceptable and perfect. If you hang out with the pigeons, if you constantly hang out with toxic people and you never question their motive, you never watch their pattern, you never learn from their mistake, this is why you're going to end up conforming. You're never going to change. You're always going to be stuck to their crappy mindset. Poor me, woe is me, I'm a victim of my circumstance. Laziness is actually a sin, as well as gluttony. The Bible hates laziness. God gives us 7 days a week, and one day God said he rested. And if you hang out with people who have excuses, laziness. They are actually heavy on the body. They don't want to move. They're like, have many things to say, complainers. Guess what? You're just going to be like them. This is why Paul wrote, do not be conformed. Do not be like them. Do not do what they do. Do not copy what they do. Evil company corrupts good moral. Yes, I would like to emphasize this until it drills into your brain. Evil company, complainers, lazy people who plays the victim, who has nothing better to do but complain and be pessimistic and look at the glass half empty instead of half full. And these are the kind of people that actually are criticizing you, who has something to say about what you do when in fact they have nothing to prove. They're too busy criticizing your work and criticizing your dreams, but in fact they have nothing to prove. They have not written a book. They have not produced a podcast. They have not actually done the hard work, the inner work of their soul. And yet we all know that there are people today that are evil, demonic, unhappy, miserable, are going to go around commenting on your Facebook, commenting on your social media, commenting on your YouTube, and they have a lot to say. Even your family members, they have a lot to say about what you're doing. Who the hell do you think you are for doing this? What made you think you're better than us? We know that these people do exist. They are jealous, pathetic, and miserable. Because as I said, if you're not miserable, you don't have no time to go around trying to destroy and trying to diminish people's life because you are happy. People that are happy are going to uplift you. They're going to help you grow because they want you to be successful just like them. But people that are miserable, unhappy, jealous, toxic, what do? They're going to say, nobody cares about what you do. They're going to make sure that you're going to doubt yourself. They're going to make sure to doubt your potential because they are what? Jealous. It is because they thought to themselves, you cannot be better than I am. For them, instead of competing on their own selves that they did 5 years ago, what do? They compete against each other. This is why, according to Eleanor Roosevelt, comparison is a thief of joy. It is a thief of joy. When you're constantly comparing yourself with other people, it is a losing battle because you're never going to be able to compete with Susie next door or Lucy, because Lucy is not you and Susie is not you. Lucy might have a different skills than you do, and maybe Susie, she's also different than you are. Therefore, you cannot really compare. You'll be in the losing battle. This is why many women, especially, you look at the social media, you watch this woman have a nice body. It looks like they don't have a problem in their life. It's all about curation. It's all about curated, the perfect snapshot, about 10 seconds. And we all assume that this person has a perfect life. She has a perfect teeth, perfect hair, perfect body, and her life is so perfect that she lives in a mansion. She freaking drives a Porsche or whatever car that you wish for, and she's always going on vacation. That's actually a glimpse of her life. It is not a full picture of her life because you don't know exactly what's going on behind closed doors. You don't know the kind of demons she's dealing with at nighttime when no one is looking. You don't know the kind of tears she had shed because she would not even bother sharing her qualms and her saga online, would you? Because most of us, we all know that the only thing we want to share for the world to see are the perfect curated lifestyle that we have. It's all about this aesthetic that is pleasing to the eyes. Because you know why? Life is already hard. And there's a lot of bad news. And of course, I appreciate those kind of aesthetic. I appreciate those kind of curated lifestyle that is perfect on picture. But actually, it's only in the paper. We cannot be fooled. This is why you cannot conform to the world. These are just facades. Some of them are. These are just kind of cover up to the things that they're truly dealing with on the inside. But as I say to myself, you can be happy. You can create a life that is real to you. You don't have to make up a lie based on your lifestyle. If you cannot afford Louis Vuitton, why would you try to act like you can afford it? This is the kind of said conformity in the world. Do not lie just because you try to be an influencer and you copy everybody else who can afford it and you're actually in debt. And you actually cannot afford and cannot keep up because you try to impress people who are careless about what you're doing, who doesn't even know who you are. Most of these people that are following you, they don't even know who you are most of the time. You are just having a very limited interaction with them, and your connection with them is superficial, and we try to impress people who doesn't really care about us in the first place. And this is exactly why this is so hard to break free from the lies of this world. It is so hard to break free from the patterns of this world, because the world is toxic. The culture is toxic. It is actually needs a lot of awakening. And we all know that a lot of people are still asleep in this generation, who are gonna just do the things that they have been doing, and they actually blame other people for their bad behavior. They blame their mom, their dad, their choices in their life, that my life is bad. And this is exactly what happens. As I said to you, if I have done the same excuses for my life, I would not be here today. I probably would have been an alcoholic, a drug addict, and a prostitute by now. God forbid. I thank God that He was able to intercede on my behalf and says, you are going to do better. You're not going to make excuses just because you were sexually abused, just because you had a very bad childhood, just because you were abandoned and nobody cared about you. You cannot play the victim of woe is me, poor me mindset, because there's nothing in the Bible that talks about poor me mindset. When you read the Bible, the Word of God, it's all about pick up your mat and walk. You can do all things through Christ who gives you strength. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. For God has not given me the spirit of fear and timidity, but of power, of love, and a sound mind. Have I not commanded you? Be strong in the Lord with all His might. Be strong in the Lord and be courageous. It all talks about confidence. The Bible is truly, it is a lamp to our feet, a light unto our path. It doesn't talk about victimhood mindset. God hates victimhood mindset. God hates people who are always complaining, who has nothing better to say. Gossip, complaining, laziness. These are what is abominable in the eyes of God. If you don't know that by now, maybe you should start reading your Bible. Because we all know that we are being judged and accountable in the eyes of God. During the judgment time, when we're going to go face to face with Him, He's going to ask you, what did you do to the time and the talent and the money and the ministry that I have entrusted you with? Everything is not ours. Everything we have is not ours. Our body doesn't belong to us. Our time doesn't belong to us. Our imaginations, our talents, our skills, all of the things that we have is provided by God. If you think that everything you have is from you, you're probably delusional, and you start questioning yourself. You're only awake today because God was merciful that you did not die last night. We think that as a human being, our life is our own, when in fact, you come into this world naked and you will return naked. You'll come into this world empty-handed and you will return empty-handed. The same way that you were birthed by your mother through her birth canal naked is the same way you're going to go back to meet your Creator naked. He will strip down every hidden motive, agenda, whatever is happening in your heart, in the secret, in the public eye. We'll all be judged, accountable. Every word, every deed, every thought. This is why people think, well, I can get away with this, and I can just keep doing the same thing over and over again without precautions, without any kind of consequences. Maybe you can get away from this lifetime, but in the next lifetime, you can't. There's no way. Because God said, I am a God of justice. I will judge you according to your will, according to the things that you do. It's what you have been sowing in this world. You reap what you sow. And this is why you know them by their fruit. And we have this pattern. And I just want to say something about this last movie I've watched yesterday. It's called Chasing Secrets. It is an old movie. It is about a Christian movie. And it really made me teary to a point where I was getting triggered by this movie, actually. I was crying relentlessly. And the movie depicted a little girl who was rejected by her own family. She was being abused, mistreated, and used as a kind of a sex toy that was going to save her family from being hunger and starving, when in fact that wasn't her job in the first place. And she stumbled upon this woman. This couple that were very religious, they loved Jesus. And there's a difference between wicked people and righteous people. We can see this. Wicked people, they will use you, abuse you, gaslight you, control you, manipulate you. And people that are godly are going to help you grow, lift you up, make your life better. They're not going to take away from you. Actually, godly people from this couple, they actually went out their way to help this little child. So we can see in this movie that was depicted that even though this couple was not rich, but because they had God in them, they feared God, and they were able to help this little girl when she was being abused and being worked. She was actually being used as a prostitute by his grandfather, and this couple helped her out to escape with their own money. And this is the difference. This is what between good and evil. As I said before, family doesn't always blood. Even though you have the same blood, but doesn't mean that you're family. Even though this little girl, she did not even belong with a kind of race that she was not supposed. I don't want to give too much of the movie. You should watch it yourself. I was crying the whole time, almost cried the whole time when I watched this movie, because there was a lot of prejudice that was happening at that time. There was also a lot of abuse. And this is still a cycle that never ends, because we're dealing with demons here, people. It doesn't mean that you're related to someone, even though you're married to someone. It doesn't mean that they like you or love you. This is so true what Jesus said. The people that are your enemies are the people that you live with. Isn't that what Jesus said? Isn't that what Jesus reminded us of? That just because your dad or your mom, you came from the same tree, or you have the same blood in your veins, it doesn't mean a thing. It doesn't mean they love you. It doesn't mean they will care for you. It doesn't mean they're your family. As I said, blood is not always family. Sometimes the very people that are not related to you are the ones who cared so much about you, who actually wants to save you and salvage you from the toxic people in your life. And that is what I was really kind of like something that I could relate in my own life. Just because you go above beyond people and you help them, it doesn't mean that they're going to reciprocate. It doesn't mean that they're going to have the same mutual love for you. Because we all know that toxic people are takers, they're abusers, taking advantage of other people. And that's what we see today. And so if you think that breaking free from the shackles of the lie of the pit of hell is hard, it is hard. It is a warfare. It is a battle. However, we are told that you cannot do this on your own. You have to attach with the vine, because Jesus said, I am the vine, you are the branches. Apart from me, you cannot do anything. You cannot bear fruit of love, peace, joy, long-suffering, goodness, kindness, self-control without abiding in the vine. Vine is Jesus Christ. You are the branches. If you're cut off from the branch, if your branch is cut off from the vine, rather, you are not going to bear fruit. You're not going to grow. You're not going to progress. The only reason why I was able to set myself free from the lies of from this hell, from this world, the moment I truly understood when Jesus said, you need to abide in me. Abide in me and I in you. Me and you are one. The same thing with the Father and me are one. That concept is about, it's not because you're being religious. It's not because you have to go to church or read your Bible every single day. It is because you ask Him to help you, to reveal to you the things that you're not aware of, to expose any darkness in your heart. This is why David said, examine my heart, O God, and know my thoughts, and see if there's any wickedness in me. Because sometimes we overlooked our sin, and we think that our sin is not grieving God's heart, when in fact, God looks at the heart. He always looks at the content of your heart. He could care less about your appearance, of how good looking you are. He looks at the heart most of all. And this is why Jeremiah said, the heart is where God tests the heart and the mind.